Face reality, people. Movies are dead. Games are dead. Narrative? Dead.
Media is nothing but neural trigger response and viral conditioning.
Wait, what are you two talking about?
All right. This is a review for a movie called American Fiction, starring the Libyans. That was Jeffrey Wright, a guy from Boardwalk and Westworld, and a bunch of. He's been in a shit ton of things. Shaft from the '90s. But yeah, okay. Usually with movies that I don't lean in favor of, I go right to the meat and potatoes of it, which is I think the movie's average at best. Probably even a little less than average for me. But that's for me, my personal taste. I would get why people would like this movie because of the not so subtle messaging in it, right? And maybe they're like, I don't know, I don't want to sound like a pompous asshole, but someone who's like newly to paying attention to messaging in movies, like they're new to it. So this is like, oh my god, look what they're saying. Like that's what I felt about The Matrix when I first saw it. I was like, wait a minute, they're trying to say shit in movies? Or The Dark Knight when I first saw it. Like, oh fuck, amazing. But when you're a jaded old fool like me, these things don't move you as much, especially with such a simple message and narrative that I think they even, I don't know if they contradict it, but like there's certain moments where you can actually hit your point home and it feels like they miss it. But I'll get into that. Like I said, I think the core message and narrative that, but this idea of like identity politics, like particularly with black people, and how it revolves around the art, around artworks, particularly film, or even books. I don't know. It seems more like about film, to be honest with you. Things like the Oscars changing rules around to make sure there's a minority in every movie, or a disaffected group in every fucking category of something. Like, okay, not all. I get it. Not all black people are drug dealers or murderers or slaves or any of this stuff, right? I get it. But obviously, the quote unquote white liberal that the culture warriors from all sides like to use as a term, of course, they have those characters eating it up, right? Like, oh man, we can make millions off of this. Like, oh fuck, you're a black dude, missing teeth, and you're a former drug dealer, and you're on the run from the cops. We can sell a bunch of copies of this because, quote unquote, white liberal America loves it. If you actually want to get really into it, like the counter to that, the culture warrior, I guess people would call them right leaning. I don't know what their politics are, but those guys would eat it up too, just to have more content to talk about. In my opinion, that's what it seems like. So yeah, for me the narrative so kind of it's cringy, and I was hoping for them to round it out at the end, but they didn't really for me. It just stayed cringy throughout the movie. It didn't turn the corner at all. But I would understand if this was like somewhat of a cult classic or something. Something. If this was like a less known movie that, people are like, oh man, someone made this. I'd be like, oh, okay, holy shit, look at that. They're secretly talking about this thing the whole time. But this is not going to be one of those, man. I think this is going to be a Oscar bait type of thing. And it is what it is. It kind of needs that, you're not that popular or big of a movie thing for me. Like, for some reason, I want that to be the case. But, another thing they didn't really focus on, like there are some things in here that are interesting to me that I wanted to see more focus on. Mainly the book itself, right? That'd be one thing, right? There's a moment where he's having dinner with his girlfriend, the Jeffrey Wright, right? The monk or whatever, the main character. He's having dinner with his girlfriend, and she has a copy of his book in her house, and he's basically like, yo, why are you reading this? Like, look at this. You have this piece of shit book, the book that he wrote under a student or under a fake name, under a fake, personality or whatever, right? He wrote this book that he thinks is stupid, right? Which is the plot of the movie. He writes a stupid book, and people like, oh my God, I love this. It's so amazing. I can't believe you. What a showcase of the black experience. And he's like, what? Fuck all of you. For like I'm an actual writer. I write like, interesting things. And it's like, and because people don't get it, I guess, whatever his main concepts are, because people don't get it, they don't sell, like, what was his name? Stagger Lee or some shit like that? Like his fake character he wrote, right? That fake, that fake character he plays, or writes as, is, it's over exaggerated. Like, oh, the black experience. I have a do-rag and I get in shootouts and whatever the fuck. Something that, let's just call it hyperbolic. Very hyperbolic. That quote-unquote white liberals eat up. But yeah, the girlfriend has a copy of that book in her house, and he's like, fuck, you're not supposed to be dumb like everyone else. You're supposed to see that this is stupid and move on from it. So he kind of like insults her about it, right? He gets upset with her about it without him, spilling out that he's the actual writer of it. And I'm like, man, I wish they took that moment so where we see the girlfriend's opinion on the book itself to give her a little bit more weight, right? A little bit more weight to her as a character, to kind of just leave her hanging, right? She becomes a non-character after that, a nothing character. I'm like, oh, that would have been interesting to hear, like, some more in-depth opinions about the book. Give the book more weight and give the characters talking about the book more weight. Meaning we get to learn more about their personalities, the way they react to this obviously fake story from a fake person that doesn't exist because he's doing it as a... Well, I think he was doing it because he's just pissed off that, shit writing he sells. So I wish I would have did that. As far as there's an author in the movie who actually is, I think, the one who's like the inspiration for Jeffrey Wright to write this fake book. What's her name? Issa Rae or some shit like that? Issa Rae, I think the actress' name is. There's a moment where, his book, the Jeffrey Wright fake book, is up for a literary award, and the Issa Rae, who wrote like something that would be considered similar to Jeffrey Wright's fake book, that is one of the judges along with Jeffrey Wright. And then she's like, yo, this sucks. This book sucks. Everyone else voted it number one except for Jeffrey Wright and the Issa Rae girl, if I got her name right. And Jeffrey Wright's confused. He's like, yo, why don't you like this book? It looks like basically your book, what you fucking wrote. And once again, it's another scenario where I'm expecting some sort of weight to be given to characters. And they said, nah, fuck that. Issa Rae is in it because she does what the people like. Right? I think her first actual comments were like, oh, I did a bunch of research for this, and, I worked hard on this book, and I'm expecting, like, oh, she's going to come out and, like, actually point out the differences between her and this Stagger Lee, aka fake Jeffrey Wright's fake personality guy who wrote this fake book called Fuck. But she doesn't. She just says, oh, well, I just give the people what they need. Oh, these white liberals, they want this book? Well, yeah, that's why I wrote it. I wrote it for them, type of thing. I'm like, what? So you complaining about how you're different from this fake person's writing, and it's like, you're not. You're explaining that you're the same. So then what? All the weight of the character is gone now. I'm expecting something where she's like, oh, no, I'm taking real quotations from real people and really fleshing it out, and that's why it's written this way. It's a counter statement to or it's a counter narrative and a counter statement to all black people act like this. All black people are beat by cops, or running away from the cops, or ex-felons, or this or that, right? I was expecting something like that, but that's not what I got. It's a straight up, oh no, I'll do this for, I'll sell the bullshit for corporate America. Uh, she's like, I give people what they want, and it's like, wait a minute. So there is no like the character that we were assuming that Issa Rae was in the beginning of the movie. She's the same character at the very end. Like they gave us an elaborate illusion that she was different, but no, she is what Jeffrey Wright was thinking about her. She is that. Thus, you could just pick her up and throw her out the fucking window too. Like she's no longer, after that moment happens, she's no longer a character in the movie. We don't care about her. I know it's the ending of the movie, but still, it's like you erased her from the movie, just like you erased the girlfriend. Any weight she had is gone out the fucking window. What else? I thought it was interesting that the quote unquote, I guess people would call right leaning culture warrior guy of the literary judges loved the book. It's like, man, it's real, it's gritty, even though it's all make believe by Jeffrey Wright. But he's like, man, it's real, it's gritty. I can imagine people doing that. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny and interesting. But okay, overall, I'm gonna say this because I'm rambling like I normally do. My mind just scatters all over the place. So, I think the core story of the movie, for me, the core idea is cringy as fuck, but the movie around it is not the cringiest thing ever. It's okay. It's like, to me, mediocre as far as how they put it together, the story they built around that seemingly core message, right? But the core message itself is cringy to me. It's the same as like some guy going into a Hollywood meeting, like, hey man, look, I got this idea. We're gonna take this white dude who, let's say he's like a skinhead in the '90s, right? He's like a neo-Nazi, you know what I'm saying? And all right, he gets hit by a car. All right, he dies. Then he reincarnates as a black kid in Chirac. Huh? What do you think? Like, it's the same core, like, and then writing a movie around that core idea. Like taking racist white dude and showing, like, what does it mean to be black in America? See, look, we reincarnate this racist white dude as a teenage kid in Chicago. And it's like cringy to me. That's a cringy core concept. But once again, if you have some skill, you can write a movie around it and make it look pretty. But I'm still staring at your core message. Like, you're not going to get it past me, in my opinion. Like, you're not going to get it past me. I'm going to fucking see that core narrative and be like, that's fucking cringy right there. But maybe there's a little bit of heartwarmingness, whatever the fuck movie around it that could make it interesting. So, yeah, overall, and the movie comes off as mediocre, and I think should be like, it'd look a lot better as a kind of like an indie movie that is like a quiet cult classic, but not, up there with the major movies, right? I mean, there's indie movies that belong in the majors, but I'm saying this is seemingly a major movie that belongs in the indies, in my opinion. It's like somebody just hit, man, what if? And they come up with some concept in their fucking dorm room, and they have to make a bunch of shit up to make a movie around it. Things that'll make you laugh or cry or whatever the fuck. And then they're like, okay, fuck, ship it. We'll go with this. When I think the top of the class should be having something a little bit more multi-layered and multi-tiered as far as concepts, characters. The plot was alright. It was okay. The plot wasn't the worst thing ever, but I think it should be more. Yeah, with all that said, I will give this movie a 7 out of 10. A 7. There's some funny things in here. It's just that core concept is so cringy to me. Like, make it more interesting and more multi-layered than that. That's such a, it seems like a dorm room concept, in my opinion. But yeah, like it would have been funny. Like this would be a lot better if it was like a skit on a television show, like a 10-minute skit or short film or something. Like it's more suited there. But you have this core concept, and you get distracted by all the fluff surrounding it, and you don't get like people don't actually end up seeing the core concept is like kind of cringy of a take, in my opinion. Not cringy. It's cringy because it's so simple that fucking dipshit down the street already thought of it. Like, that's what I mean by cringy for this in this particular case. So 7 out of 10. I guess I recommend it, but if you don't give a fuck about any of these political narratives in film, you'll fall asleep. I'll tell you that. There you go. There's my review.